screen and just do a couple of announcements. In fact, I have a number of different announcements to tell you about today, so bear with me, and then we will pass on the mic to Erik. So I'm going to share my screen. You should be looking at my presentation now, my PowerPoint. And just let me bring, I don't know where my Teams went. Here. Okay, so you see my PowerPoint, right? So we are good to go to start. Welcome everyone to another MS Excel Toronto Meetup group. We are in April 2023 and we have Erik Oehm today to talk about microautomations in Excel. Very exciting topic. Before that, I have a couple of announcements to some news for you, events, products, and things like that. So a couple of minutes here. Okay, everyone knows the drill, how it goes. We are on Teams. You can raise your hand. You can send reactions. Erik has advised that he will prefer questions to be left to the end of his presentation, but you can always use the chat to put in your questions during the presentation, and we will pick the questions out of there. Or you can then ask, just turn on your mic and ask directly at the end, okay? And the session will be recording and will be posted on YouTube. So be mindful of that. By attending this session live, you are accepting that your interactions may be public. So if you don't consent, you need to disconnect. And if you have any problems with the chat, you can exit the link and come back. It usually solves the problem. So here's our YouTube channel where we will be posting our recording in a couple of days. And then when we have the recording uploaded, we will send an email to everyone who registered for the session containing the link to that recording, the link to any files that Erik might share, any other information. You will find that link in a couple of days. Also, if you don't find that, if you don't get that email for some reason, or it goes on your junk folder or anything like that, if you go on the Meetup website, there's on the group page at the top, there's a place that says more, and then under more, there's the board or something like that. Message boards, something like that. In there, you can find all the communications that I've been sending, because I always post them in the board, message board as well. So if you need to find the link for files from a previous session, the recording or anything like that, you can scroll through that list of messages and find the information there. Okay, our next session in May will be about templates, how to make Excel templates from and make them ready to use. Danuta Pezda, she works for Someca, which is a website and a company specialized in Excel templates. So she will be sharing some of her good practices with us. The session will be at noon Eastern time, because they are in Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. So for their time zone to work with ours, we need to do the session early. I listened to several people telling me that they need training in Power Query. So I decided to prepare a live training. I already have an online course that includes Power Query, includes other things related to Excel reporting automation. Besides that course, I feel that some people prefer to just block one day or two in their calendars and go through it right there and then, because otherwise they will be procrastinating. So for that type of demand, I am offering a live training. We have in-person, face-to-face for those of you in the Greater Toronto area. It will be happening in Oakville. And then we also have one option for now, one block of dates for now that happens online. If the time zone works for you, you can also register for that one online. The first one in person is 2 full days. The other one is 4 blocks of 3 hours each, 3 to 4 hours each. So there's this information, there's the QR code, and there's a link there where you can find the information. And this is the place where we will be, the two photos below is the place where the training will be delivered, the in-person training. And feel free to send me any messages if you have questions, okay? There will be a podcast chat discussion in May, the Financial Planning and Analytics Today podcast, where I will be joining George Mount and Mark Proctor to talk about Power Query and why financial people should consider learning Power Query. There's Excel awards going on, nominations for awards. So the link is there. All these links, Grania is posting them on the chat. And when I send out the email, you will also receive a PDF with all these slides and you can go through it. It will come to you in a couple of days. So there's different categories of prizes, most influential professional in the Excel industry, best Microsoft Excel add-in, most obscure use of Excel, lifetime achievement, and MVP in the making. So you can, they are receiving nominations until the end of April. You can participate by nominating the people you follow and the work that you appreciate. And then there's voting, and finally the winners will be announced in June 19th. Sessions for this month. Oh, this is not good. Sorry, that slide says April, so it's not updated. Sorry about that. But you can follow Faraz, Shaikh. Sorry for this, but this slide was not updated. It says April. No, we are in April, right? Yeah, we are in April. I was not talking about events in May and June and got confused. So Faraz always posts these calendars, these lists with Meetup presentations for the month on LinkedIn. These are the presentations that were available when he posted these beginning of the month. Then we have Reactor, which is a program by Microsoft that allows for people to share knowledge in technology, especially Microsoft technology. They also have a Meetup group with a lot of sessions going on all the time. Feel free to check them out on Meetup and see what they have there. And this is just a page with a number of resources. Our YouTube channel, you can find the videos from previous sessions there. My YouTube channel, my newsletter that goes out every month. The next issue is going out this month. There's a lot of new features and improvements in Excel, and we include those. We gather all that information for you so that you stay on top of what's happening. And this is the other course I was telling you about, which is pre-recorded, although it also has live sessions. Even today we had a live session. We have one live session every month, but there's the materials are pre-recorded and you can go through it at your pace, and you can join the live sessions or watch the recording later. And it's about automating Excel reporting procedures from beginning to end. It has a great focus on Power Query. If you need to do this kind of thing, which is dependent drop-down lists in Excel, I have a video about that that you can follow. But if you prefer ready-to-use file, I have these on my website as well that you can find here. The file is ready to use. You just need to put in the data that you need for your case and change the name of the columns, and everything will work. Okay, so Solvent Excel is my consulting company, and we are sponsoring these sessions. And that's it. Okay, so now we have Erik Oehm from the US, and he will be sharing his knowledge. I believe you will be surprised with the kind of stuff this guy has inside his mind. It's his mind works with a different kind of software, at least than my mind. But I'll leave that to you for you to confirm. There's Erik's links there. Feel free to take a picture so that you can connect with Erik after the session if you'd like. And there's my contact information on social media as well. Feel free to connect. Okay, and I have, I'm going to read the presentation, the summary that about Erik that I have here. And before that, I met Erik on at the Global Excel Summit, not this year, but last year. During the meetup, during the networking moments, we in that year we were getting matched with people for 5 or 10 minutes to just chat randomly in Zoom, in a Zoom room. And we got to meet there, and we've been chatting since then. And I do appreciate Erik's intelligence and the different things that he creates, and I couldn't avoid but inviting him. He was not very excited about that at the moment. He's used to keep what he knows for himself, but I told him that the world needs to know about that, about what he creates. So here we are today. That's it. So Erik Oehm is a self-proclaimed Excel super nerd with over 25 years of experience in Excel automation. He is the owner and chief automation officer at Oehm Automation, a software consultancy focusing on Excel automation for the investment industry and developer of Excel-based automation tools. Erik has written no books and has 38 followers on Twitter.
No, I'm up to 76 or something now.
Yay!
I've like doubled in 3 months.
Yeah, that's great progress there, you see. So thank you, Erik, for joining us, and the floor is yours. Tell us what else have you been up to and what are you presenting to us today?
Great. I'm going to start off by sharing my screen. Please tell me that you can see it.
We do.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm really doing this. Gosh. Thank you so much, Celia. I'm super excited and nervous to be here today and to talk to you about my favorite subject, which is microautomations.
Yeah, so
all right.
Let's do it.
So today's agenda. Today, I'm going to be sharing Excel's secret to success by introducing the concept of microautomations. You're going to learn how it's possible. You will also learn how it's possible to have too much of a good thing in Excel. I'm going to demonstrate the power of microautomations, and I'm going to share how you can benefit by thinking differently about how you use Excel on a daily basis. All right. First of all, I'm sure some of you are probably wondering right now, who is this guy and what qualifies him to speak at this great event, the same stage that people like Bill Jelen and Oz DeSoleil, Wynn Hopkins, Victor Momo, a lot of my idols have spoken here, so I'm super honored to be invited. But let me tell you what qualifies me. Number one, Celia invited me.
Yeah, I decided to get.
It turns out that all you really have to do to be qualified to show up here is to be invited. And she's an Excel MVP, which actually gives it a lot more credibility because that is very impressive. My second qualification is I use Excel as PowerPoint. Now, only real Excel super nerds do this. And in fact, I do not recommend it. I would actually be a lot more prepared if I hadn't have taken on the endeavor of using Excel as my PowerPoint. But nonetheless, this is actually Excel. All right. And number 3, I have superpowers. Yes, ADHD is a superpower. I'm sure some of you in this audience understand this. But if you think that people with ADHD are just distracted, multitasking overachievers with too many browser windows open, well, you'd probably be right. But we also have the ability to hyperfocus. So when there's something I'm really interested in, I get what I call Excel vision. And this is like, it's like a time machine where you're so locked into your Excel spreadsheet, obsessing over what shade of blue to choose for your table header, that the rest of the world just disappears, and it's just you and your formulas for hours. You've probably heard about people that are born blind and develop an acute ear for music or an enhanced sense of smell. Well, when you hyper-focus on something for 30 years, good things happen. Number 4, I've been automating Excel for 30 years. It's hard to say when it really started, but I started my career as an actuary for a pension actuarial consulting company. I worked for 3 great companies, Bank of America on a massive cash flow analysis model that working with a guy named Will Tompkins, who was doing just pioneering, incredible work. This is way back in like 1995. I worked for a company called Microautomations, which I always looked up to and thought was such a cool company because they really focused on Microsoft Excel as a development platform and other Microsoft tools like SQL Server and other things. And I reached out to a guy named Steve Harshbarger, who was one of the co-authors of the Microsoft Excel Developer Handbook, and said, you know, hey, if you're hiring, I'd be very interested in working for you. At the time, they didn't have any offices in San Francisco, but then I heard back from Steve, and he said, we're going to open an office. Do you want to join us? So Steve and I and John and one other guy, the sales guy, we basically started the San Francisco office and built it up to 25 plus people, and worked there for many years until the .com bubble burst, and we kind of got into the .com website building, and so the company had to close their office after many years of working there, but it was a great experience. I also did a stint for a company named Softagon, which was run by a great guy named Eric Wells, who was the product manager on the Excel team for Microsoft for many, many years. And that was a great experience. But in the end, I ended up starting my own company, and that was nearly 20 years ago. My company is called Oehm Automation, and we do custom software development for hedge funds using Excel. And we're really doing a lot more tool building right now, and branching out into new endeavors. So that's a little bit about me. I do have some disclaimers. So number 1, I was never really an actuary. Okay. Technically, I was an actuarial analyst. Now, in high school, I thought I read this article in Forbes that said that the actuarial profession was the #1 rated job in America. It was great pay and low stress, and you had to be good at math, and I love math, so it seemed like the perfect job for me. I didn't last that long as an actuarial analyst, to be honest with you, but I did learn some things. Number 1, low stress is just a code word for boring. Sorry, any actuaries that are in the audience. Number 2, I figured out that I hate numbers. Now, you're probably wondering, how can you hate numbers? You spend 30 years in Excel, you can't hate numbers. Well, yeah, you kind of can. In addition to being blessed with ADHD, I also am slightly dyslexic, and numbers are not really my favorite thing. But it did lead me to my true love, which is I love automating Excel. And as an actuary analyst, you're basically a glorified Excel jockey, staring at numbers all day long, moving things around, analyzing things. And when I discovered that instead of actually doing that work, I could write formulas and macros in order to make my life easier, I quickly realized I was in the wrong profession and that my life was going to be going in the direction of Excel automation. Second disclaimer, I suck at keyboard shortcuts. Now, once again, you're going to be saying, how can you suck at keyboard shortcuts if you've been doing this for 30 years? Okay, now, I know a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but I can't remember keyboard shortcuts. Like the ones I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but I've been doing this for 30 years. So I actually have learned a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but there's so many keyboard shortcuts that people know how to use that I'm totally like amazed by people who are super fast in Excel because they know all the keyboard shortcuts. And I'm super jealous, but my brain just is not cut out for learning keyboard shortcuts. Mostly because they make no sense. For example, Alt-HOI. Why in the world is Alt-HOI auto fit column width? Like, how am I supposed to remember that? Like, why can't it be Alt-AFCW? That would make way more sense. So that's, you know, something I've been dreaming about and working out a solution for over here as well. All right, number 3, I'm socially challenged. Yes, I sound like I'm a normal person, I'm sure. But honestly, an earlier version of this slide had this one reading, I'm socially retarded. But even though it passed my wife's review, apparently this is offensive to some people. So I had to change it. Then I tried antisocial, but that had too much of a Unabomber vibe. So I finally settled on socially challenged. But you know, bottom line is if I say anything offensive or if I'm awkward in conversation, don't take it personally. This being socially challenged also applies to social media. I've been on LinkedIn for 10 plus years, and I think I did my very first post last year when I was super excited about the Lambda function becoming available. I've been on Twitter for probably just about as long, and I just don't put myself out there. I've never had my picture on LinkedIn, and I prefer to just hide behind the scenes and focus on Excel. So bravo to Celia for pulling me out of the woodwork in order to do this, because I never thought that this would happen. Number 4, the 4th disclaimer, I'm inherently lazy. Yes, this sounds horrible, but I'm also ironically a workaholic. I will literally work late into the night in order to automate everything so that I don't have to do any real work. As an actuarial analyst, I spent all day scrubbing and jockeying data around. So I would come in early and stay late to learn how to use formulas and macros to make it less work. in my early days of creating automated reports for hedge funds, I spent all day programming these bespoke reports, and it was way too much work. So I stayed up late and worked weekends to develop a table-driven reporting engine for Excel to make it less work. That reporting engine is now still being used daily by some of the largest hedge funds and private equity firms in the world. And now, after automating pretty much everything and anything in Excel for my clients for so many years, I now spend much of my waking hours focused on how to automate the process of automation. This is what led me to an epiphany that I call microautomations. So there's a secret that Microsoft has, and it has to do with the fact that Microsoft Excel is incredibly special. I think that if you're here taking a break from whatever you're doing to watch a video about microautomations without probably having any idea what a microautomation is, but knowing it has to do with Excel, then you probably agree with me. But let's just review a few things. Number one, Excel 1.0 for the Mac debuted 37 years ago. Like what kind of what other software has been around that long and is as strong as it is now? Microsoft Excel has an estimated 1 billion monthly users globally. Like, I can't even fathom what that means. Like, 1 billion users globally is absolutely incredible. The Microsoft Excel World Championship was recently broadcast on ESPN. Now, I'm wearing the shirt that I just got. It has my name on the back. The crazy thing is that people from all over the world like spend their nights and weekends studying and like training in order to compete in a spreadsheet program. Like it's under these tight time frames, and it's really just insane. But the thing that I find like even crazier than us doing that is the fact that people want to watch it. Like how crazy is that? Excel keeps getting better and better and better. Now, I have to admit, there were some years, I don't remember which years, 2005, somewhere around there, that Microsoft was kind of lagging. Not a lot of changes. It was like, what's happening with Excel? But holy cow, the last 10 years, the last 5 years, holy cow, Microsoft is adding so many great features to Excel. It just keeps getting better and better. And I have to say right now, if any of you are still stuck in Excel 2016 because you think it has everything you really need, for the love of Lambda, suck it up and subscribe for Office 365. You're really missing out. There's so many features you can't even get in Excel 2019, 2021. You got to go for Office 365. It is absolutely worth every penny. So I encourage you to do that. All right. So kind of this, you know, one of the other things that you have to think about is they keep making it better and better, and it has so many different features that you really have to ask yourself, like, how many features does Excel have? And if I had one of those poll things, so like the Teams polls, I do a poll right now, and there's going to be people out there that are like 200, 500, no, 800. And I'm here to tell you that Microsoft Excel has thousands of features. I can show you the thousands of features right here. All right. So as it's doing that, all right, so you have features in your ribbons and menus. You have formula, you have Power Query features, you have M code functions, you have Power Pivot, you have DAX, you have VBA, you have the full Excel object model, you have Office scripts, you have the JavaScript API. I'm telling you, there's thousands. If you added up all of these, it would not be less than 2,000. It would be more than 2,000. There are so many features in Excel. It's hard to it's hard to imagine how how that could be possible. So those who master Excel, and nobody knows how to use all of these. I've been doing this for 30 years. Like, I don't know all of these features, not even close. You're always learning with Excel, and you're always adding more things. There's always more to learn in Excel. Even if you did know everything, they just keep on putting out new features that you would have to learn as well. But those who master Excel can create dynamic, living, expressive, enlightening, and sometimes horrifying works of art that tell stories, predict the future, and affect the lives of millions. For those that are super fast and efficient with Excel, their daily work becomes like getting paid to play a video game. So what makes Excel so great? The answer is microautomations. All right, so Microsoft has a real dilemma on its hands. This is not a new dilemma, but it is one that that they're handling, but that I feel like I need to address. So Excel has thousands of features, like I was saying, yet we're always saying, I wish Excel had a feature to XYZ. Happens all of the time. There's nothing stopping from Microsoft from adding more. But is it possible to have too many features? Here's the thing. There's like, I don't know what the count is, 500 or so worksheet functions. There's nothing stopping Microsoft from adding 500 more. I mean, there's so many that you could add, and they have to just kind of draw the line somewhere. Now, it's the same thing with features in the ribbon or whatever. At some point, you can have too many. So Excel's dilemma is that Excel can have both too many features and not enough features at the same time. The way that Microsoft addresses this issue is they focused on, many years ago, there was just menu bar going across. There didn't have the ribbon. And people were complaining that there's so many features that you can't find what you want in the menu items. So they added the ribbon, which gives a whole hierarchy of way of looking at things. So it's organized and visual, and yet you still have menus underneath the some of the icons will have drop downs with additional features. So it's a multi-tiered approach of looking at things. They also add special tabs called context menus that only show up at the right time. It doesn't make sense to have a whole bunch of buttons on a toolbar that have to do with pivot tables if your cursor isn't in a pivot table. So Microsoft did a great job with that sort of thing. They also gave the ability to add taskbars. Those are the panes that show off to the right and give you additional functionality for setting properties on your drawing objects and that sort of thing, which is very nice. More recently, they added the Alt Q search. Most people don't realize it, but up at the top of your Excel, especially if you're in Office 365, there's a search bar. If you do Alt Q, it'll take you to that search bar, and you can type in features of Excel, and it'll help you get to them. So that's definitely a cool thing that Microsoft's done. They also added something similar to where if you right-click on something, it also puts a little search box there. So they're always adding cool features to make it easy for you to filter through and find the features that are most important to you. And then to address the features that are missing, Microsoft has gone overboard on giving you extensibility features so that you can add the features that are missing yourself. It actually started with the XL4 macros. When I first started as an actuarial analyst, my job was, part of my job was converting Lotus 123 macros to Excel 4 macros. So that was a hoot. But then VBA came out in Excel 5.0. At that time, there was, like hardly even an internet to speak of. But Microsoft actually had a 1-800 number that you could call, and a human would pick up the phone and you could ask them questions about VBA. And that only lasted for like a year maybe. And I'm almost certain it was because I called them like 5 times a day for like a year, like asking questions and, trying to understand. I was the only person doing macros at all at, at my company. And my lifeline was the free tech support call that you could call up, and they would literally answer the phone, pick up the phone like a person when you dial, and you could talk to them and ask you questions. And it wasn't like those tiers where you had to talk to like 3 different people before you actually got to somebody who knew. It was like some guy who knew VBA that would answer the phone. It was incredible. They've also added Office scripts, which is a great new way of doing things that fits way better into kind of the world of the internet and Office Online, multi-platform. Although VBA is extremely powerful and there's still lots of stuff that you can do with VBA that you can't do with Office scripts. Office scripts is catching up. VBA macros do work on the Mac, but not everything works on the Mac, and you cannot use VBA macros in Office Online at all. They've also added lambda functions. This is like, okay, there's only 500 feature functions in Excel, and you think up one that you want that doesn't exist. Now you can just write it yourself, and it becomes one of the choices inside your Excel spreadsheet that you can apply and do. And you can make generic ones, or you can make ones very specific to the report or the model that you're working on. So that's outstanding. Power Query. Power Query is like the coolest feature. Well, no, Lambda is the coolest feature. I'm a Lambda fan. But Power Query is just like the coolest thing ever. It's been out now for, I don't know how long, 10 years. I mean, it's been out for a while now, but it's still gaining in popularity. People discover it and they see what you can do with it, and you get hooked. And Power Query has its own language behind that, which is M code. Similarly, you can do amazing things with pivot tables, but now Power Pivot is basically hooking up a traditional pivot table to a cube. So when you have a workbook that is running a Power Pivot in it, you are literally, and I mean literally, you are literally running SQL Server analysis services in Excel. There's a little tiny engine inside of Excel, and you are running analysis services in Excel. You can even check in the task pane, and there's an engine that's running. It's like it's basically a simple version of analysis server, and you are designing a cube, the same DAX language that you can use in tabular data modeling in SQL Server is the same language that you learn when you are learning DAX for Power Pivot. Microsoft is super smart about how they do this. It means that when you go into Excel and you don't know anything about SQL Server, you don't know anything about Power BI, you just have Excel, they're basically are giving you a training ground for you to learn things that can be used in all these other places. If you learn DAX in Power Pivot, you're not that far away from moving on to using DAX in a full SQL Server environment with analysis services and tabular models, and doing real enterprise level data modeling. When you learn Power Query, you're learning a big, huge chunk of Power BI, because Power BI is backed by data that flows in through Power Query. Not only that, Power Query is also in other places. It also is on Power BI Online, which is if you've, I think there's Databricks and other things that allow you to pull data from a kind of on the server side and make those make data models available in the Power BI cloud, and those become data sources that then you can use throughout your organization, not just embedded into a single workbook. So so these are some of the amazing ways that Microsoft has addressed this kind of dilemma of being simultaneously too many features and not enough features. All right, so I keep saying this word microautomations, and I'm sure some of you are like, I've been doing Excel for so long, what the heck is this guy talking about microautomations? That's not in the vocabulary of Excel. That might be true. I think I might have made it up, but nonetheless, it's what I call something that, after living and eating and sleeping and dreaming about Excel for so many years, I woke up one day and I think I kind of figured out what makes Excel so popular. So microautomations are simple, generalized, shareable, frictionless, contextual building blocks of productivity. Now, I know that's a mouthful. I probably have to work on that. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but it if you think about what makes Excel so great, there's all sorts of things that individually you can say, oh, well, you know, Excel's great because you can do keyboard shortcuts. It's like, but I don't like keyboard shortcuts. I love Excel. You know, there's lots of products out there that have lots of features, but you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're you know, they're like on the level of Microsoft Excel. So let's just talk about some of these. Simple. So there's different philosophies about automating. Now, I've been automating Excel forever, and the types of automations that I do and Celia does, and people who have been doing this for a very long time, it's enterprise level automations. This is very different from what I'm calling monster automations. The monster automation, you've probably inherited, some of you have created them, I'm sure, because creating a monster automation is kind of part of the evolution of getting to the point where you can create really elegant enterprise automations. But a monster automation is taking this huge, big, complicated process and creating this 1,000-line macro that automates it all. And it has all these like hard-coded cell references and magic numbers and it's just like an accident waiting to happen. And I can't tell you, like, you know, how hard people like us cringe when we, you know, a client comes to us and say, oh, we have this guy who wrote this great, you know, thing, and they hand it over to you and you open it up and you're like, shoot me now. So the difference between a micro automation and a monster automation is that you want to keep things simple. And I want to point out something about Excel that seems super obvious when you say it, but when you go into Excel, there's no button in there that says generate financial model, right? That's because you are using Excel's features to get the job done. Excel's true power lies in its ability to enable you to do amazing things. And how does it do this? It's microautomations. Generalized. So after years of writing automations for people, at some point I looked back and I'm like, how many pieces of code do I have that I can really go back and reuse? You know, it's like when you build things for clients, most of the time you're building things in a way that it's really only solving the problem that they're paying you to solve. They're not generalized. This is a mistake. The reason it's a mistake is the same reason why Excel doesn't have a big, huge button that says generate financial model. It has building blocks for you to have power to do things in Excel. There's nothing preventing you from creating solutions that accomplish great, amazing things, but doing it in a way where those individual parts of it can also be reused in normal use. So after years of doing this automation, reducing 3-day processes down to 3 minutes, it's not like after you reduce something, it takes 3 days down to 3 minutes. It's not like the person who you automated that for gets like 3 days off. You know, their day just like fills up with more crap work. So they very quickly forget. They're like super duper excited for like a month, right? And then they're like, now like 3 minutes of their day is like they click a button, they're like, yes. And then the rest of the day, they still have to do crap work. So it makes so much more sense that if you can create micro automations that use those or can be used in combination so that maybe you can get that 3 days worth of work done in 3 hours. It's not as fast as 3 minutes, but if you can do it in a way that is using generalized micro automations, then those same automations, you'll find bits and places to use those in other places in your week. So it not only saves you time in that initial application, but it also saves you time in other places throughout your week. And it also brings you more joy because just like keyboard shortcuts, it feels good. It's like you do a keyboard shortcut and boom, something happens. It's like instant reward. So imagine if it's bits and pieces of your business logic that you need to do, that you regularly do, and being able to just have those at your fingertips at any time. The other problem with basically, you know, big huge solutions is that over time people forget what the manual process was. Now, we've been doing this for a long time, and I can guarantee you that we only understood your business process long enough to automate it. So when you come back to us expecting us to be the experts at your manual process, unless we like miraculously like documented everything, you know, in extreme, in some kind of extreme way, we're not going to be able to tell you what your automation is doing unless we dig into the code and understand what it is doing. That's just the way it goes. So over time, what happens is the people who did understand the original process don't even remember really what the original process it was. And a lot of times those people might not even still be around. They leave and go to another company, and the new person, all they know is I push this button and I wait for 3 minutes. Now that's a risk for companies, because if something goes wrong, some data source that you're feeding in, or some system that you're pulling data from, if one of those things changes in a way that breaks your giant automation, and this applies whether it's a monster automation or an enterprise level, properly designed, large automation project. When something goes wrong, the whole thing breaks. And if you do it in an enterprise way, at least you've designed things so that maybe things are table driven and you can go in and make changes, and it's not, that hard to fix the problem. But they can't fix the problem, and they can't do the manual process anymore. So the great thing about micro automations is if you have like 10 micro automations that you use kind of in combination to get that done, you're remembering the business process, because I use the Iron Man suit analogy. If you've seen the movie Iron Man, it's Tony Stark, and he's like, this regular guy, he's very rich, and he builds this like Iron Man suit that makes him a superhero. He can, has super strength and visuals that pop up, and all this crazy stuff. And basically, he's still doing the work. And it makes a lot of sense for if a user can still feel like they're doing the work, so that they understand the business that's going on and where the data is going and what the steps are, but they're just able to do it wearing their Excel Iron Man suit. So that's basically where I came to this like startling conclusion, that I started thinking maybe I've been automating the wrong things, or automating them in the wrong sort of way. So what is the better approach? The answer is micro automations. Shareable. All right. So Excel is brilliant because basically everybody has these same features. So when you go in and you do some cool feature in Excel, that's immediately available to other people. So the person sitting next to you can be like, how did you do that? And you'll be like, oh, you just go and use this feature, and it's shareable. The extensibility features are all shareable. If you write a VBA macro, you can share it with somebody else. If you create an Office script, you can share it with somebody else. If you write a Lambda function, you can share it with somebody else. Shareable is an important part of qualifying something as a micro automation. If it's so big and complex that you can't just say, here it is, you use it, then I don't consider it a micro automation. So design your micro automations with other people in mind. Frictionless. Now this is one of these things. I get these arguments with people that are like, oh, well, Python is like super amazing. You have all these like, libraries. You can write code to do anything, and it'll run faster than Excel, and it's easier and easier to do complex things. And and all this sort of thing. And I think Python is great, but there's too much friction, and you actually have to be a programmer and be able to remember all of those things, which I have trouble with. So what's great about Excel is all of the productivity that you have is at your fingertips. It's a click away on a ribbon. It's a keyboard shortcut away or a right click away from doing the things you want. And even if you create your own macros or whatever, they're always easy to get to. You have the quick access toolbar. You can put buttons on sheets. You can create your own custom keyboard shortcuts attached to your macro. You can even use the ability of VBA to listen for events and trigger your macros, your automations to run based on things you do in Excel. So there's lots of different options, but they're all frictionless. If you think about it, if you know VBA, VBA has the immediate window. I can go into VBA right now, and I can go and I can say active cell.bold equals true. And I can change that cell to be bold. That's kind of like the Python equivalent. But nobody does that. Like, I love VBA, and I am very proficient in VBA, but you do not catch me sitting around typing things into the immediate window in order to do things in Excel, because Excel is frictionless in it making the features, those thousands of features, available to you at any moment. Contextual. So at some point, you have to consider the fact that that you're going to have automations that are not the right time to run. And so part of what makes Excel great is it's contextual. It shows you the features that make sense to be used in the contextual environments that you're in. Like I was saying before, if you're in a pivot table, you see pivot table features. If you have cells selected, certain things gray out on the toolbar, that kind of thing. And then building blocks. So building blocks are basically just means that you can combine microautomations with other microautomations to create new microautomations. If you think about something like Python, you can, when somebody says, I can write like an amazing program in just like a few lines of code, those are like almost like little microautomations. But if you look at what each line is doing, there's whole packages of complicated code behind that kind of built up to give you those functionalities. So you can do the same thing with your microautomations, which is even if you build small units, if you wanted to, you could string them together and run them in a sequence and create a new microautomation that does all of those things together. You have to be careful about making that too monstery, but you have that ability. Okay, so that's the basic concept of microautomations. I think that you're all probably eager to see some examples of this in action. So now I'm going to move on to my first example. And it works out great because in our audience happens to be the great Danielle Stein-Fairhurst. And I reached out to her and asked if she doesn't mind if I use one of her data examples that she just posted on her YouTube channel and on LinkedIn. I definitely recommend you checking out her stuff. She's an amazing trainer. She explains things great. I personally think that all of her models are just they're just beautiful. They're like so nicely formatted, and I'm always like super impressed when I see her stuff. So we're gonna start off here with doing some very simple microautomations. So in this particular case, we're creating a debt schedule. We have an interest rate, we have a loan term in years, and we have a loan amount. So the first thing that we're going to do is we have a period here. So this is supposed to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, granted, some of these examples are like, well, Erik, it's so easy to just type sequence, comma 5, and then you're done. But we're talking microautomations here, so we gotta be more creative about what we're doing. And a lot of the microautomations that I create are things that I like. I don't know if I'm probably the only one that does this, but I will wake up like in the morning and my eyes will open. I'll be like, that's a microautomation. I need paste sequence. So so here's my first example of a microautomation. It's paste sequence, and basically it's like, okay, I've got a 5 here. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste sequence across to the right. Boom, done. Okay, now at this point, you're probably saying, yeah, Erik was at the thing that flashed across the screen. That's might be a question that could show up in the chat. So microautomations can be launched in lots of different possible ways. You can have the quick access toolbar. You can assign keyboard macros to your macros. I'm not good with the quick access toolbar because like it only has so many buttons, and I literally have hundreds of microautomations. I can't remember keyboard shortcuts, and there's not enough like ways to trigger things. So I literally created this tool because I'm incapable of doing it in the other ways that are available. And this is not really about the tool, but you will see it flash. So I just basically ran a microautomation that I took a copied cell and I pasted a sequence command. Now it didn't paste 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It pasted sequence, comma C8. So that's kind of nice. Now the next thing is that there are certain things that in Excel I just think are like so frustrating. I don't know. There's probably like Dermot is going to be like, like in his yelling at the screen, oh, that's so and so, because like he does everything like so incredibly fast without any of the crutches that I use. But when I want to name a range, like I want to name this interest rate and this long term and this loan term and this loan amount, you have to like reach for your mouse, go up here, type something in, and you're typing something in that's right there. I just find it like very tedious. And when you do a lot of Excel, it's those little frictions that bug you. And so I create a lot of microautomations that are just very specific to things that I think are annoying, and I want to reduce the friction in my life. So I have one that is name parameter cells, and that basically just took all 3 of those. And if you can see up in the upper left corner, it named the cells based on what it says to the left. And it was smart enough to like take out the parentheses and the spaces and things that didn't make sense. In addition to that, when we named that cell, it also went through and found all of the places that were referring to that cell and swapped it out for the named range. Because for whatever reason, Microsoft didn't make it so that when you name a cell, all of the references that refer to that cell don't just automatically use that named range. So instead of shaking my fist at the screen, I just created a microautomation to do it the way I wanted. I also have one where you can select and do it by row. So I can do name parameter row, and that just named this whole set. And that comes in handy when you're doing things with dynamic arrays. And by the way, it actually named this range using the pound sign in the name, so that if you were to add more columns or do whatever, it's not fixed on just those specific cells. So now that we have things named, it makes it so much easier, because now I can just say loan amount. If I hit tab, loan amount, and this one goes to the debt balance. Now, here's my next pet peeve about Excel. Now, you're all before I do that, doing this out of order a little bit here. The other thing that I was going to show off is I noticed that this 5-year debt schedule is hard coded with a 5, which if you change this to a 4, everything's dynamic, but this still says 5. Now, it's like Excel 101 to go in and modify this to be a formula that refers to this cell. But in my mind, that's just friction, right? So, so I created one that is copy, and then I go here and I do substitute copied text. And what that just did is it took the value in that cell and it converted it to a formula and substituted the 5 for a reference to the named range that contains the 5. Seems like a feature that Excel should have, because you do this stuff all the time. It would also work the same if I wanted to say month instead of year. I could have year in a cell, and I could copy that, come down here, even though this is a formula now. I can do the same one, substitute copied text. Demo fail, demo fail. Okay. Disregard that feature. That one needs some work. But once that bug is fixed, you can basically copy something like this, and it will substitute in year right here with the appropriate link to this cell, and then you could change it to month. So you get the idea. Okay, back to the next pet peeve that I have. Next pet peeve is fill right. Now, I'm not really a financial modeler. I'm more of a Excel automator. So I tend to use fill down more than fill right. But I'm always seeing Diarmuid and like Danielle doing these fancy moves in Excel that, for whatever reason, I was born with a brain that cannot do this, even after decades of being in Excel. And this is what they do. And props to anybody. There's probably a bunch of people that say, oh, this is like so easy. But okay, if they want to copy, now it's super easy to just copy these across because there's only, a few columns. But imagine if you have, 20 years of quarterly, columns, and you need to copy this formula all the way to the right. what people do is they go hold down shift, they go up, and then they hold down control and they go to the right. Oh, that didn't work. See, I don't even know how to do it. Hold down shift, go up, and now you hit tab, still holding down shift, and then you do control right. No, I don't even know. Maybe I can't do it. Somebody help me out. This way, to the right. Okay, that's good. Yep. And then you go down. Okay, so the people who are good at this do this in like a flash. They just like boom, 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 and it happens. And I admire you, and I think that's amazing. But I am not. My brain doesn't work that way. But it begs the question that when I do Control R, like, why doesn't it just copy things across? Like, it seems pretty obvious to me that you look up, you see what's above you, and you look over, you see how far over that goes over, and that's how far you want it. So I have a autofill to right version, and I actually mapped. I can't even show you what the regular Control R does, because I have Control R mapped to do my microautomation replacement for control for fill right. And same thing with fill down. Fill down, if you have you know, missing data, sometimes you know, you can like double click on the little thing in the corner and it'll zip all the way down, but then you have to take your hand off your keyboard. If there's a blank row between you and what you want to copy down, it doesn't, that double click thing doesn't work. You know, it's silly. So now my version of auto fill down and auto fill right make it so that those are automatic. So now we're going to put in a formula for repayment, and that's payment. The rate is interest rate. The period is the 5 years, so that would be loan term, and present value is loan amount. Oh, no, I'm doing that wrong, aren't I? Danielle's like, that's wrong, Erik, that's wrong. So what I want is period, and then loan amount. And because I named that that range up here using a dynamic array, if I were to change that 5 to a 4 or whatever, it would automatically adjust for that. This particular debt model is doing a water flow spiraling effect, so I can't use a dynamic array, or else I'm going to get here, or else I'm going to get circular references, but you get the idea. Now here, this is one I actually know, alt equals. So alt equals is auto sum, so I just did that and created a sum of the cells to above, and then I'm going to do Control R, which copies it across without having to do the whole rigmarole with shift and tab and whatnot. So that is my first demonstration of microautomations using the debt schedule example. All right, so let me go back over to my slides. All right, next one. Example 2. There he is, Dear Mid Early. Now, I just thought it was like super fun to have a video, an Excel video about beer. I'm not even a beer drinker, but I just thought it was fun. So when I saw Dear Mid's video about this, I'm like, I gotta use beer data in order to demo some micro automations. I thought it'd be perfect. If you aren't familiar with Dear Mid, I think he's currently former world champion in the Excel championship. He'll be fighting back for that again in Las Vegas in December. But he is hardcore and super fun to watch. It's if you love Excel, then definitely subscribe to his YouTube channel. His videos are kind of like an Excel nerd's wet dream. So the and Diarmid is also known as the LeBron James of Excel, which I think is really cool. Some people have referred to me as the Tony Stark of Excel. Shout out to my mom. So we're going to be using some beer data. It's not his data. He didn't make up the data. That's from Reddit, from somebody named Amused Parrot. And this is not a link to the data. It's a link to my downloads directory, but I'm going to be using this cell as part of my demonstration. So if you are interested to get this data yourself and play around with it, check out Diarmid's YouTube video, and the links are in the description. All right, so with this data, I'll be demonstrating some microautomations. I'm going to run through these pretty quick because I'm not going to show this list as I do it, but I'm going to be pasting some data in from a CSV file. I'm going to be formatting the sheet and the data, including putting a header on the sheet, freezing the panes, setting up the column widths, doing number formatting, some conditional formatting, some grouping and collapsing. We're going to be playing around with filtering tables. This is a great way to do data analysis on a data set. I'll show off some interesting automations that I have for that. We're going to do some analysis with dynamic arrays, some fun microautomations for things that I wish Excel had available. We'll be doing some interesting ways of some unique ways of filtering in Excel. We'll be converting some URLs to images. We'll be opening websites from URLs. We'll be doing some extra special Goto specials and some extra special paste specials. So that is what we're going to do. And we are going to do this from a completely blank sheet because we have all the time in the world. How are we doing on time, Celia?
It's 10 to 7, but that's okay if we can go a little bit over 7, as there's no hard cut.
Okay, so we're going to be playing with some beer data. So first of all, I better pick up the pace here, I guess. Where did my, okay, so I'm copying a cell that has a file name in it. And I have to say, this whole part of the demo is high risk. So it's very possible something's going to go horribly wrong. In fact, I'm going to save right now. Okay. Let me go back over here and copy that again. And so I'm going to do paste CSV. So this is pasting data from a CSV file. And what I just did was I took a CSV file that was in a cell and I copied it, and then I pasted and I ran an automation that dynamically generated a Power Query, formatted it, and put it into a cell so that you can just start playing with your data. Why doesn't Excel have that already? I do not know, but now you can do it. So we're gonna do some other little micro automations here. I'm going to format this slide header. There we go, that's much better. I'm weird, like OCD about my column A being size 2. And I also, even though list objects give you the ability to freeze your panes, I'm going to do that this way. Okay. So that's great. I'm gonna, let's see here. I'm gonna try to do this fast here. There's certain things in here. If I want to auto fit a column width, I can do the way it should be, not HOK or whatever it is. It should be auto fit column width. So I can auto fit that stuff. I can do number formatting. So this column here is the level of alcohol, and I want to do that format accounting with 2 decimals. And while we're at it, let's make it put some format, little stars next to it. That's a conditional formatting feature of Excel. Let's see here. If there's columns that you don't want to see, you can, there's lots of different ways of hiding columns, but I really like the group and collapse. And it's usually 2 steps. You got to group it and then you have to collapse it. So I created one that just does those together. Dates are better formatted as format number short date. Much better. And I'll auto fit that. All right. So that's enough of that. Now let's get to some filtering. So Excel already has lots of great filtering features, but if you're lazy like me, then you want to know things like, let's see, there's a rating. Oh, this definitely has to be auto fit. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to sort the rating. This is beer data, and these are ratings of beers. So what I want to know is what is the worst beer in this entire rating data. So I'm going to do sort A to Z. There we go. So that's one way of doing it. I can also, I'm going to Control Z that. Gets me back to the way it was. I could also do filter by, let's see, it would be filter bottom 10%. There we go. So that just filtered it down to just the 10% lowest ratings. And then I could also do the same sort of sort within that. So 1.4 is the lowest one. Oh, that's in Zimbabwe. That's kind of sad. Zimbabwe doesn't have good beer, I guess. But if we wanted to take a look at what that beer looked like, we could come over to the photo URL, and let's convert that to an image. And let's just see what that looks like. Ah, there it is. Very nice. Now, you'll notice that the problem, Zimbabwe did not get the memo, despite putting taste the goodness on the front of their beer. They didn't get the memo that carbonated is kind of a, you know, I don't know if carbonated is the right way to think about beers. But I'm not a beer drinker, so what do I know? I'm going to get rid of this one. All right. Now, now we got to do, let's do something else here. We got to move along here. I have a lot of stuff to show you. So we're going to play with some data here really quick. So it's interesting to me that this is from Zimbabwe. So we're going to play with this brewery country column here. I'm going to do that off to the right so we can get into some dynamic array stuff. So country, and I don't remember what I named this table. Table, is it? Let's see. This would be brewery, country. All right, so now we got a bunch of countries. Now, if you haven't been paying attention so far, this would be a good time to start paying attention, because what I want to do is do some analysis on not the countries, but the continent. And there is no continent in this data. So what I want to do is I want to take this list of data and I want to return the corresponding continents. So I'm going to select all of this data and do fill in corresponding values. This is high risk. It's very possible this won't work. Oh, it's not going to work because I have a filter on here somewhere. Clear filter selected column. Clear selected column filter. There we go. Okay, so we just pulled the continents corresponding to those countries magically using a lambda called corresponding. And how does this lambda know what the corresponding continents are? It's using generative AI. And this is something that you can do right now in Excel. This is a lambda that you can have and you can try out yourself. We can change that to something else like capital city. Come on, you can do it. There you go, capital city. I could type in 5 other things in here, but I'm not going to do that right now. So I'm going to skip some stuff here because I feel like we're running out of time. We could also do things like copy a value from over here and then paste it as a filter. So if I wanted to filter on all of the records that were Zimbabwe, I can actually just copy those and paste them in. The other thing that I noticed was that if we were looking at the different countries that are available, let's take this and we're going to do a wrap with unique. That just takes the existing formula and wraps a unique function around it. We can see that there's a bunch of different countries in here, but Northern Ireland is kind of the same thing as Ireland. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy Northern Ireland as a value, and then we're going to go no, did it the wrong way. So we're going to copy. Where is it? Silly me, I should be sorting this. Wrap with sort. Oh, much better. So I'm going to copy Ireland, and then I'm going to go over to Northern Ireland, and I'm going to do paste special similar, paste special over similar values. Now, that may not have worked because this is a dynamic array. So I'm going to copy this and paste it as values. And now I'm going to do Ireland and I'm going to paste over similar values, and it just replaced it. Not only did it replace it there, it replaced it everywhere that there is a Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland should no longer be in this list. That can come in very handy when you're doing substitution of data. Okay. Celia, tell me, like, are we going to get cut off, or are we okay to continue?
No, we are not going to get cut off.
Okay. Is there anybody still on the stream, or has everybody
We have
left?
50 people on.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So should I keep going? Are people okay with me doing more?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions, not too many, but some questions as well.
Okay, great. The other thing you can do is if you have a cell that has a URL in it, like where's our Zimbabwe, it's no longer on top because
it's in a couple of rows now below. You have a Zimbabwe. I'm not sure if that's the one you want.
Oh yeah, there it is. So if we wanted to see that brewery, we can open the website from a URL, and it opened up on my other monitor. But there is the website to the link with their not so stellar beer rating. All right. So, okay. So let me go on to a couple other things here. Could do paste over similar values. I showed that. There's a whole bunch of, there's like so many things that that I could show. My list of microautomations in here, there's there's literally hundreds of microautomations, and I set it up so that if there is a keyboard shortcut that is the equivalent, I say what it is. So originally my intent was I was determined to compete in the financial modeling World Cup and actually be decent at it. And I wanted to force myself to try to learn all these keyboard shortcuts. And so I set it up so that it would tell me what the keyboard shortcuts is. So if you ever wanted to fill contents across worksheet, then you just have to remember that that's Alt H F I A C and then hit enter. Easy, right?
There's, I don't know if you want to answer these now, but there's a lot of curiosity about what triggers that window. People are asking, is it hotkeys? Are these macros? What kind of technology is behind this tool?
That window is a .NET XLL written in C#. So we're using the extensibility features of Excel. You can create both VBA add-ins in Excel, and you can also create XLLs, which are compiled, they're like DLLs that are special to Excel that you can create using Visual Studio. There's frameworks like Visto and Excel DNA that make it fairly easy to do that. My particular tool is kind of on the, on the higher end of things that you can accomplish with that stuff. That's not supposed to be there. So microautomations are not restricted to Excel. You can microautomate everything. You can interact with websites. So you could do things like open a ticket in Jira. You can book a haircut. I actually have one for book haircut. I'm a little bit overdue in using it, but it opened up on my other screen. Whoops. I'm not sure where it went. There it is, the Petaluma Hair Company. Okay, so You can interface with APIs. So REST APIs, like you can get or post time to your spreadsheet program online. You could load expenses into QuickBooks if you're using like QuickBooks Online. You can query your Twitter follower count using REST API commands. You can also execute code in other languages through as microautomations. So if you wanted to call C# code or F# code, Python, PowerShell, AutoHotkey, whatever it is, you don't have to think of just microautomations as being VBA or whatnot. I think of everything as being a potential microautomation. And you can also get creative, interact with the OpenAI, ChatGPT, generative AI. That was some of the stuff that I showed you earlier. I have lots and lots of opinions about the future of Excel and our jobs and whatnot, having to do with ChatGPT and whatnot. Spoiler alert, your job is safe. Lastly, you can destroy your work enemies. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but I just thought that this was like the funniest video, and I think everybody should watch it. Lawrence Lau is the current reigning champion, Excel champion of the world for 2022. This is his ring. If you take the championship, you get this awesome epic ring, and I don't think it comes with a gold chain with a dollar sign. I think that's his own, but he won last year, and he created this video that is that you can destroy your work enemies with Excel VBA, and the premise is that you can infect an Excel workbook with a macro that will literally shut down your computer. And you can pass it to people in a Zoom meeting, and have your competitors. If you're climbing the corporate ladder and you're trying to like take down that snobby person who's always trying to show you up, you can infect their Excel file with a way to literally shut down their computer. It's a super funny video. It's definitely worth watching. But for my final trick, I created my own. I'm not the type that would like take down my enemy, but I could definitely see the advantage of if you're in a pinch and you're, not entirely prepared. That never happens to me. I'm always 100% prepared. Joke. Then if you find yourself in that situation and you want to get out of it, I created one that I call Kill Excel. And it's basically, it basically fakes your Excel crashing. And so when you run this microautomation, you want to do it silently so nobody sees that you're running it, and it'll make it seem like Excel's crashed. But there's a key to making this, to pull this off, and the key is, let me see. This is like high risk. I'm not 100% sure. It could like kill the whole meeting. I don't really know. Oh, I needed to be scrolled up. Okay. Don't just pretend like this worked properly. Ah, there we go. So now anybody who sees this message, they're like, their stomach sinks. And they're like, oh no, not the Excel is not responding message. So so you pop up this, and then the key, and this is really critical to being able to pull this off, is when you click on the restart program, you have to make sure that you have a really cringy desktop photo. And you have to select the right window when you're doing it. Oh, my Excel crashed. Oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing. And now you're seeing my desktop image. Oh, I can't believe this. This is horrible. We're going to have to reschedule this meeting for another time. So that is my presentation on microautomations. And now we can open it up to questions. I'm sure there'll be some, and I hope you enjoyed what I had to show today.
Thank you so much, Erik. This was really fun, entertaining, insightful. And some people are, for example, one of the last questions, in fact, or one of the last few questions is, okay, this was kind of demo, not so much of how can we do something like this. I'm guessing, for example, I don't see myself doing anything near similar to that. Okay, I work a little bit with VBA and lambdas and Power Query and things like that, but not C# or whatnot. So, or Visio. So, what is your advice to people who came to the session wanting to learn something different or to try something different to improve their routines?
So here's the exciting part. The exciting part is that all of the microautomations that I've shown you, or I should say none of the microautomations that I've showed you are part of that tool. They're all just microautomations that I created using that tool. And the more exciting part is that that tool is going to become available so that you yourself can create your own microautomations and fill your tool with the microautomations that are of interest to you. And that's something that I've been working on for literally years. I call it OA Robot. And it's basically a automation launcher. It comes empty, and you can put whatever automations that you want in it. The automations are shareable. So if you create an automation, it's actually embedded inside a workbook. If you email that workbook to somebody else that also has OA Robot, they will automatically have those automations. I basically want to create something that anybody can use to create and share microautomations. I'm a small company. I have 3 employees. And some contractors working for me. I'm not like a big fancy company, but this is something that I'm super passionate about, and I want to make it so that this will be very inexpensive and free for running automations that already exist. So I'm really hoping that it'll benefit a lot of people. Most of the automations that I've shown you, I'm going to make freely available in GitHub so that you can fool around with microautomations that already exist. And I really hope that people create their own creations, create fun things that are cool to them, and that they share them with other people. So that's that's where I'm going with this, is that right now nothing that I showed you was in there's a couple of features that I'm using in my tool that make it easier to do things, like you can code. It's actually very tricky to get the range of a copied range off of the clipboard. That's why you don't see a lot of automations based on copying and doing stuff with copied data. We built that into the robot so that you don't have to write special code for that. So there's integrations into Excel that makes creating them easier. But most of the automations that I showed you required no programming for me to do. Like those ones where
Do you want to show an example how someone could create something to put in the tool for?
Yeah, are we okay
their
with
own
time? Because
use?
I'm happy
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, 10 more minutes. Then my husband is going to say, "You're late for dinner. It's getting it's getting cold."
Sure. All right, so I'm gonna do a let me set here.
Such a nice picture, that one.
Thought you'd like that, yeah. Okay, so first of all, I'm starting in a blank workbook, which means blank workbook means it has no VBA in it at all. First. Okay. Alt F11. That was book 1.
It's a test.
Oh, now it's test, right? Message box. Hello world. Okay. Jump back over here. I'm gonna hit plus. And it's giving it a unique name for that, but it did figure out what it was going to be called and hook it up. And so now if I run hello world 1, I get a message box. So we just wrote a microautomation. If you wanted to do something with, let's say, a formula, then you can do the same sort of thing and add a formula command. There's all kinds of different types of commands that I have set up. But let's just say formula to sell above. Now what's a better one? I'll do wrap with some. I know that name's already taken, so I'm going to call it sum 2. And I'm going to say equals sum of the active cell formula. Okay. Now we can try it again. Oh, not hello world. Wrap with 2. Hey. So now, like, if you think of it as being you know, you can take your own functions, like your own lambda functions. You can create lambda functions and use them right in here and do things that that you never, you know, you never expected that you'd be able to do. Like if I do that sequence 5 again, or here's one. I can come back to this one and I can do remove outer function. That takes off the outer wrapping of the function. It's kind of like an undo. And now if I wanted to do something like pairwise, wrap with a pairwise lambda. So that just offsetted the array with the corresponding one. So it's like for a prior, that sort of thing. But what's cool is that is a lambda command that did not exist in this. If you understand lambdas, lambdas only work if you have the lambda in your workbook, we didn't have that lambda in a workbook. We started with a blank workbook. So as you run your automations and use your lambdas, we've reduced the friction to where now you don't have to go find the lambda that you want and move it into your workbook. Every lambda you've ever written is like at your fingertips, ready to be used. And you can use it in all sorts of different ways. So similarly, we remove that. We can do like cross join. Where's my cross join? Might not have cross join available. Must have called it something else. But
would people, to get these available, when this is available, we need to install something? Is that how?
Nope, it's an XLL. Basically, you'll be able to download it and put it on your computer, and you open it up in Excel like an add-in. There's no installer. There will be some form of licensing, like you'll have to, get a license code from me. But even the free version will, will be easy for you to do that. That's kind of the stuff that I'm still working on. I really wanted to be able to have a public beta available so that people can, download it and start playing around with it by now. But this is like my side project. I run a consulting company with many hedge funds that we actually do work for during the day, and this project is something that I'm very passionate about. But the only reason that I can afford to spend time building this is because we do billable work that helps to pay for stuff. So I live in a very small house because I spend all of my earnings on creating fun things that I want in Excel. Historically, mostly for myself, maybe a little bit for my clients, but this is the first thing that I've done that I've really felt like the world needs to get their hands on it, because I think it's really going to make it so much easier for not just people to like do their work, but also for automators, like people on this in this group that know how to write VBA, know how to write formulas, know how to create Power Queries, but they're not at the level where they're full-blown enterprise developers that create like gigantic complex systems. The great thing about microautomations is they're small enough units that you do not have to have the level of skills to create a microautomation that you do to create an enterprise level larger automation that's not a monster. So it really opens it up. And with ChatGPT, there's so many opportunities. The generative AI is actually really good at writing short bursts of code. It's really limited to what you can prompt it to ask for. But it doesn't make sense to go out and like every time you want to like do some little thing, go and ask it for some code and then run it. By the time you do that, that's a huge amount of friction. But once you do it once, you can capture that little chunk of code, give it a name as a robot command, and then now you have it available to you to use it whenever you want. And that's what I really think is the power of this, is now with generative AI, you can create prompts like that that one that I created before. If I say let's see, trying to think of something clever to do. U.S. holidays. Oh, I don't have my GPT robot going. So basically the way it works is that the commands that show up are in definition sources, and I have definition sources, a whole bunch of different robots for various different things. And if you share one of these workbooks with somebody, they get all of the commands that go along with that. So if I wanted to see specifically what commands are related to, let's say, arrays, I can filter it on just the commands that are array related. So I've got tons and tons of array functions for doing all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, so there was a question here that said, sorry if you mentioned this at the start of the session, joined in late, but what room do you see for those independent microautomations in the future when Microsoft will have fully complete integration of Copilot and other AI models to Excel Office environment?
So the thing is AI will write code for you, but you still have to have the ability to read that code and understand whether it's doing what you want. The real limitation of generative AI is it's like a communication gap. We're still in the early stages. A lot of times you can explain something pretty well to AI and you'll still get a bad answer or a made up answer. But in the future, as that improves, the limitations of the AI will be in your ability to communicate to the AI what it is that you want. And by breaking things into microautomations, you have small enough things that you can prompt AI for that have a clear inputs and clear outputs. And then you can sequence those together. So one of the command types that the robot has is a sequence command, which is basically sequencing together multiple other microautomations. So what that means is you can have one automation that runs some VBA, and then you can have another automation that creates a Power Query, and then you can have another one that runs an AHK script to launch a website. And then you can create one command that's a sequence command that runs all three of those in order. So that way you're not limited to, oh, I wrote a macro, so now I have to do everything in VBA. Like I write very little VBA nowadays because Power Query and lambdas, you can do so much in Power Query and lambdas that you know, if I was telling people what they should learn, I would definitely learn Power Query before you learn VBA. Definitely make sure you understand dynamic arrays and lambdas and get good with your formula side of stuff. And your VBA knowledge does not have to be hardcore, super deep. If you're doing things in a microautomation sense, you can record macros, you can ask ChatGPT for macros, but it has never been easier to learn things now because you can ask generative AI questions and get back answers that get you most of the way there. And if you've experienced learning a new programming language, a lot of the challenge is figuring out why something doesn't work. And a lot of times the AI isn't going to create the perfect solution, but you have something to look at. It's very daunting if you're learning VBA to start with a blank module and just have to start writing code. It's actually much easier to learn VBA now than it has ever been. So that's my take on it. Good question.
Okay, yeah, I think now I do need to end the session. At least I need to leave, but you guys are free to stay if anyone wants to. But before that, just let us know how people can connect with you and how can they find you. Follow your work for whenever this tool is available or for any other topic, they can communicate with you.
Yeah, so I'll say, even though I have very few Twitter followers, LinkedIn followers, and YouTube followers, If anybody on this call wants to be my 7th YouTube subscriber, then it's a race to see which of you gets it. And I'll say that the next 10 people that subscribe to my my Twitter will get absolutely nothing for doing that, but I will appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much. This was so much fun. People are thanking you, and I guess you have a lot of work ahead, because then you need to teach people how to use this and take advantage of this.
And I'll also say, if there's anybody out there that is interested in helping me beta test this, I'm definitely going to need beta testers and people that can help me get this vision out to the rest of the world. It's way more than I can, handle on my own, and I'd love to have, volunteers to help. What I'd love to see is somebody use OA Robot on an Excel competition. It's actually within the rules. You can use add-ins, you can use tools, anything that's available. You can use your own macros. So I would love to get it to the point where somebody will make it into the top 10 of the Financial Modeling World Cup using OA Robot. That's my goal. I wish it would be me, but I'm like one of those, I'm like a 5'5" person that loves basketball and wishes that they could be on the NBA. I'm just not, mentally equipped to ever be a Dearmid early. So
that would be fun. Yeah, and if there's no rules, they can use it, right? And good luck to everyone who is participating in the next financial modeling competitions. We are cheering up for you. And thank you so much for joining, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording